Hello, class. Today I'm going to be talking about the case of Eric Meiggs and Declan Harrington. So, what was the crime? The two men steal cryptocurrency and hack into social media accounts. How did they do it? They used something called SIM swapping and computer hacking. So, what is SIM swapping? SIM swapping is when scammers take over your phone by convincing your phone carrier that they are you. They use social engineering to achieve that, and they do it to take over your finances, the victim's finances. So they will call the phone carriers and they'll pretend to be the victims, and that's how they get access to the cell phones. Cell phone numbers and emails. After that, they're able to hack all that stuff. So, how was computer hacking used in this case? They used computers to search for their victims. They used the computers to hack into the social media accounts, and they also used them for threatening the victims to get what they wanted out of them. So, who were the targets of this crime? The targets were people with a lot of cryptocurrency. So, that's the online money like Bitcoin, people with high value OG social media account names. By OG social media account names, it means they search for people with cool sounding names and happens to like celebrities and well-known names. So how did they threaten? They threatened people for information, not just the victims, but the victims' close family members. Now we get to know who committed the crime. The criminals in this case were Eric Meiggs and Declan Harrington. Eric Meiggs was a 24-year-old man who started hacking in 2015 to 2018, and it's said that he was born into an abusive household. Then there's Declan Harrington, a 22-year-old man who was also born into an abusive household. This goes to the hacker manifesto that we learned about in our textbook, where these men tried to use their trauma as an excuse for what they did, and that's something that was discussed in our book. But in the end, they ended up taking responsibility for their crimes, full responsibility for their crimes. So what were the crimes? Both men targeted at least 10 victims. They stole between $330,000 and $550,000 in cryptocurrency. And how was their crime stopped? They were threatening victims' close family members for money. And Eric Meiggs called and threatened a victim about killing his wife because they had the information of where these people lived, and they also used that to their advantage. The addresses, the phone numbers, emails, they were all used for threatening. And it was also stopped because they caught on to the two men SIM swapping. So they were taking over people's cell phone numbers. People started realizing, and they used unauthorized access to get into their emails, social media, cryptocurrency. People start to notice changes in names, that their money is being taken. Their things are just changing, and it's not their usual activity. They also had some failures when they tried to hack into the victims' accounts. Um, the SIM swapping was successful for them, as well as taking over their email accounts. But at the end, they couldn't properly hack and get some cryptocurrency. For some of the victims, it wasn't for all of them. Now, how did they get caught? So they hacked into the victim's social media account, and again, they were threatening and harassing their family members. But it's when they called their victim's wife and then they texted their daughter saying, "Tell your dad to give us Bitcoin." It's what eventually got them caught and arrested. So, what was the outcome of all of this? Both men, Eric and Declan, were arrested, put on trial, and in prison. They were arrested by the FBI in 2019, and they pled guilty to all charges. There was a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison. Now, up to this point, we didn't know if they were going to get the full 20 years or less time than that. They'd have to go through the trial first. So, what were the charges against them? They were wire fraud, conspiracy, computer fraud and abuse, aggravated identity theft for their alleged crime spree. Once the trial was over, Eric Meiggs was sentenced to 2 years and 1 day in prison. And Declan Harrington was sentenced to 2 years and 7 days in prison. So both men were not given the full 20 years for their crimes. And it seems like the victims didn't get justice in this. So what can be learned from this case? Obviously, people need to educate themselves in different forms of hacking. We have more technology nowadays, so we need to know and understand that it can happen to any kind of technology we have, not just computers. It can happen to our cell phones because we use our cell phones more than computers probably. That there's different kinds of hackers. This chart here is similar to what we learned in our textbooks as well about the different kinds of hackers. And, we should be able to identify when you or someone is being hacked. Know what the different kind of accounts you have and make sure that there's nothing different going on, that stuff is missing, things are changing without you having personally changed that. So we have different stuff. Now on computers and phones, we have antivirus softwares that can help us detect any suspicious activity. A lot of our cell phones and computers have security features that we can use. We just have to be aware and on the lookout for any suspicious activity on there. So what can we do? What can we change? Definitely use stronger passwords. Not something simple. You don't want to use your birthday, your name, anything obvious like that. And it's kind of common sense not to be using that stuff. Also, use security questions on social media that, maybe only you know the answer to, or very, very close people to you know the answer to those questions. And just as importantly, think about who you give your information out to. It's super easy to just give any information to people. You know, when you're buying stuff online, when you're ordering stuff over the phone, you never know who's listening. You know, make sure that you're buying from secure websites and all that stuff. And make sure that the websites you use are legit. You know, we learned a lot about spam and links and suspicious links and not to click them. So, yeah. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you learned a lot about computer hacking and can become better at stopping it.